Everybody want a nigga dead. Soon as I am born, I'm in debt. That's why I keep running from the feds. So if you shoot me, make sure that I'm dead.
I'm talking about sampling records.
And now our feature presentation.
What's up, YouTube? It's the Movie Detective, and I'm here to inspect, dissect, and give you an introspective look into the world of movies, anime, and TV. We have a very special video for you today. We are going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 5, Chapter 13 of The Mandalorian, entitled The Jedi. This isn't going to be a full comprehensive review because if I were to talk about all the things I want to talk about in this video, the video would run longer than the actual episode itself. Therefore, we're just going to talk about a few things that stood out to me during the episode. So with that being said, I'm going to be discussing the episode as if you've already seen it. So if you haven't seen it, click out of this video, go watch the episode, come back, make sure to drop me a like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel for notifications on upcoming quality content coming to a laptop near you. Remember, in the legal profession, one must always be organized. So I'm going to organize this video and tell you exactly how I'm going to conduct the review. From the top, we're going to talk about the directing and the production of the episode. And in the second part of the video, we're going to be talking about Rosario Dawson's performance as Ahsoka. And in the last part of the video, we're going to be talking about the narrative and the effect that certain plot points will have on the story moving forward. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So this week's episode of Mandalorian, entitled The Jedi, is directed by Dave Filoni. Now, if you aren't familiar with Dave Filoni's work, he's directed episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated series. He's also directed episodes on Star Wars: The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. And in terms of live action directing, he's directed the first episode of The Mandalorian. And in the first season, he directed episode 5 of The Mandalorian. So this is a wheelhouse in which he is familiar with. And I think that this episode is his best work in the Star Wars universe yet. I think that his manipulation of the environment, like when he used Ahsoka's white lightsabers while she was shrouded in darkness to create a certain tone or certain atmosphere. I thought all of that was really great work. I love where he took the character. This is, his character. He created this character, and now we're seeing where this character is after all these years. And I thought it was interesting to catch up with this character. I thought that Dave Filoni was a perfect choice to direct this episode. I don't think that anyone else could have directed this episode as well as he did. This episode was directed so well, in fact, that I believe Dave Filoni should probably have his own Star Wars movie at this point. I think he has proven that he is a credible live action director with this episode, in terms of the storyline and in terms of the action sequences. Some of those lightsaber battles were some of the best lightsaber action scenes I've seen in Star Wars in a long time. It's definitely better than any lightsaber fight I saw in the new trilogy, in Rey's trilogy. I like these lightsaber battles more than I liked anything we saw in the new trilogy. I thought those lightsaber battles were definitely underwhelming, especially after the prequels. I would take every single fight that we got in the prequel over any fight we got introduced to in the new trilogy. But let's get back to the actual production of the episode, which was outstanding. It's clear the budget has ballooned from here to Tatooine. That budget literally extends from here to Coruscant. And they show off that budget in this episode. They made the episode look beautiful. I can't say enough good things about this episode. I feel like this is the strongest Star Wars content Disney has produced since Rogue One. It was the first episode of The Mandalorian that felt like Star Wars to me. I don't believe that Star Wars is that good without the Jedi presence. When Star Wars doesn't have Jedi, I feel like it struggles. The Han Solo movie struggled. It was because there was no Jedi, and me as a Star Wars fan, that's one thing I look forward to the most. It's not the only thing that I like. I like the starships, I like the guns, but the thing that draws me most to the Star Wars universe is the Jedi. And the lack of Jedi was jarring to me in Solo. I'm glad that the Mandalorian isn't afraid to travel down the Jedi route. And I'm glad we got a lot of Jedi action in this episode. I know I have a lot of glowing things to say about this episode, but it's not to say this episode is without flaws. And we're going to get to some of those flaws when we talk about the acting and the performances. But first, I wanted to actually discuss some of the good things in this episode, because I feel like this episode does a lot of things very, 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 very well. And it all is accredited to Dave Filoni's great work in the director's chair this past week. Now, with discussing some of the things that I liked about the episode, now let's talk about some of the things that I didn't like, then that kind of fell flat. Specifically starting with Rosario Dawson's performance as Ahsoka. This is the most controversial aspect of the episode. Star Wars fans were split as to whether or not they enjoyed Rosario's portrayal as Ahsoka. And this brings me to my only real nitpicks of the episode, because I think the episode is amazing. It's the strongest of the entire series. So I don't want to confuse the conversation. But some of my nitpicks are the writing was a little flat, especially some of Ahsoka's lines. It felt like some of her lines were forced in the sense that she, no pun intended, forced, but they were forced in the sense that she was giving any line that any Jedi would potentially say in that situation. And I feel like it was just Jedi talk instead of the character of Ahsoka. Ahsoka is a different type of character, a different type of Jedi than anyone we've seen prior to her introduction into live action. It would have been nice to see her veer off some of that same old, I sense fear in you conversation and give her some actual character specific lines that we can say, okay, this is Ahsoka. This kind of felt like just any Jedi could say these lines, and it wasn't, and he could have came across any Jedi and they would have been in that situation, and it didn't necessarily have to be Ahsoka. There was nothing in the episode that made me say, okay, this is Ahsoka, except for some of the lines that really hit well, like when she was talking about Anakin and her not wanting to train Baby Yoda because she sees what that attachment, what fear and attachment does to a Jedi when they lose that thing that they're attached to. And she would never train up a force that could be that, detrimental to the galaxy again, because with great power comes great responsibility. And she understands that if Baby Yoda were to turn to the dark side, it would be detrimental to the entire galaxy, and she's not going to have that on her conscience. So she decides not to train Baby Yoda, which I thought was the most interesting dynamic and the most interesting tension of the entire episode. Now, let's talk about the performance itself. I thought the performance was actually quite good for what Rosario Dawson was given. I think that this is the vision that Dave Filoni had for the character. I think that he wanted to present to us a new Ahsoka. This Ahsoka isn't the same Ahsoka that we see in the Clone Wars, and it isn't the same Ahsoka that we've seen in Star Wars Rebels. This is a different character. This character has experienced growth. We don't know exactly all of the things that she has been up to in the years, but we know she's still fighting the good fight. Her war was not over after Palpatine was defeated by Luke. Her war continued. She's still going and looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn. So it's clear that Ahsoka never stopped fighting. And I think that Rosario Dawson portrayed a character that was war-torn, that had some trauma from her past battles. And I think that she wore that trauma well in the episode. I feel like her performance was strong for what she was given. And the controversy of the episode stems from fans not latching on to Dave Filoni's character development of Ahsoka, as opposed to anything Rosario Dawson was doing on a performance level. Whether or not it was Rosario Dawson's performance or Dave Filoni's character development, it was something off about the portrayal of Ahsoka that made her not in line with her past appearances in the Star Wars universe. And I think we should pose the question, should Disney have brought back Ashley Eckstein to portray Ahsoka to get her more in line with her past appearances in the Star Wars universe? I mean, they brought back Darth Vader, so I don't understand why they couldn't have brought back the voice of Ahsoka. It would have required some CGI work, definitely, but I think Disney could have pulled it off with the budget ballooning all the way to Tatooine. And it's not to say that Rosario Dawson had a bad performance. I just think the question should be posed, would Ashley have been able to bridge that gap that some fans were feeling between this episode of The Mandalorian and Star Wars: The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels? I feel like that question should be posed, but I'm interested to hear what you think about Rosario Dawson's performance as Ahsoka. Let's carry on this conversation in the comment section below. And this transitions me into the final part of the video, which we will discuss the implications of certain plot points for the story moving forward. So there were a lot of things introduced in this episode. We got Baby Yoda's real name, which is Grogu, Grogu-kun, Grogu-san, Grogu-sama. I love that name, and I hope they start calling Baby Yoda Grogu now. We also got Grogu's backstory, which we find out that he was present for Order 66. He goes into hiding after, and he's also been hiding his powers because he knows the Empire is hunting Jedi. So not only do we get the backstory, but we also get confirmation that Baby Yoda is intelligent and he isn't just some baby. He actually knows what's going on around his surroundings, and he's had past Jedi training back on Coruscant. So Baby Yoda has potential to actually do something great with the Force throughout this series, because I didn't think that Baby Yoda was going to be this much of a factor in the show, but it seems to be that he's going to be a constant force in the show moving forward. This episode also builds on the relationship between the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, because now it's revealed that Baby Yoda would only use his powers around somebody that he actually trusts. So it signifies that he trusts Mando. And it goes back to that tension I was talking about earlier between Baby Yoda and Ahsoka as to why Ahsoka refuses to train Baby Yoda is because of that attachment and that trust that he has built with the Mandalorian. And I thought that that was the strongest part of the episode. I could go on for hours talking about all of the great content that we got in this past week's episode, but let's talk about two things that I had an issue with in terms of the narrative of the story. The first thing is a minor point, but it still bothered me throughout the episode, and it has to do with the Mandalorian metal that was made out of the armor and the spear. It's like, since when is Mandalorian metal able to block lightsabers? I remember Mace Windu being able to slice through Jango Fett's armor like it was butter. So I have two questions leaving this episode. It's like, why didn't the Mandalorians manufacture the armor around the neck area to prevent from beheadings? Because that's something that you will probably experience fighting a Jedi. That didn't make any sense to me. Since when are Mandalorians able to go toe to toe with Jedi in terms of combat? This is good development for the actual show, The Mandalorian, because now I am 100% in belief that that our Mandalorian can fight other Jedi. He is on the same level as a Jedi right now. He doesn't have the Force, but he's like the Batman of the Star Wars universe. He has a whole bunch of gadgets, and he has this armor that can block lightsabers. So he can fight a Jedi. I believe that now. But in doing so, the implications for the larger Star Wars universe is at stake because you're retconning old things that we've already seen. Like, I've already seen Mace Windu handle a Mandalorian, or at least someone in Mandalorian armor, very, very quickly. So I don't understand, since when did the Mandalorian metal be able to do this? And I hope they go deeper into the manufacturing of this metal, because this metal is game-changing. Now, this brings me to my second and larger issue I have with the show itself. The show is expanding. At the end of the episode, Ahsoka is looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn. And with the introduction to a character like Grand Admiral Thrawn is cool for Star Wars fans, but in the context of the show, it may take away from the Mandalorian story. As we know, the Mandalorian is a self-contained, smaller scale Star Wars story. So if we start introducing all of these past characters that we're familiar with, these characters run the risk of actually taking over the entirety of the show. It's like, now that this episode's over, I kind of wish they would just follow Ahsoka and Ahsoka's storyline with Grand Admiral Thrawn. As more characters get introduced, that risk becomes greater. Imagine an episode where the Mandalorian comes across Luke. We're going to all of a sudden want the story to focus on Luke and what he's doing with the new Jedi Temple. And there's a myriad of characters that you can mention that are like that if they get introduced back into the Star Wars universe, we're going to want to follow those characters. So the Mandalorian has to, keep up this balancing act of making sure you don't take away from this small contained story while still expanding and including things that we are all familiar with from the Star Wars universe. It'll be nice to see some new characters and some new things introduced in the show that have some ties to the old past, but not totally reliant on reusing old characters. But those were my only issues I had with the episode. Outside of that, I thought it was a very, very, very strong episode, maybe the strongest episode of the entire series. And I can't wait till next week so we can, keep this story moving forward, because we still haven't gotten to Boba Fett. And I'm sure, it's similar to at the end of season 1, where we got introduced to all of the characters in the first season. And then at the end of the season, all the characters that we were introduced to throughout the entirety of the season came together on this final, Avengers type mission at the end of the episode. At the end of the season. And I think if we're lucky, we will get a similar narrative in season 2, like we got in season 1, where we're introduced to characters like Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, and Boba Fett. And then at the end of the season, these characters come back together for an Avengers-style final mission. You'll find that this show follows a particular narrative every single episode. So I think it would be nice if they followed the same narrative in season 1 that they had in season 2, especially with all these great new but familiar characters we're getting in the series. But that's all I have for you today. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Please drop me a like, smash that bell button, make sure to comment, and subscribe to my channel for new quality content coming soon to a laptop near you. I've been the Movie Detective, and I'm here to inspect, dissect, and give you an introspective look into the world of movies, anime, and TV.
I'm talking about sampling records.
Hopped in the booth, nigga, tell me what the word is. I won't sign a deal, they can't tell me what my worth is. My team deep, think my corpse is back. They say that real rap is dead, I think rap is back. Think that they lied to you, I got my finger on a pulse. Single for a little, oh that's little more than lost. Usain Bolt these jokes like relays. And in slow motion, catch the laugh on a replay. Just to tell you how I really feel, tell you how I feel inside. Do this for the feeling the feeling when you really die. I told my niggas take the cap off that, pack the backwoods, I might just have to backpack rap. Used to be scared just to play my music compared to the ones who do it. Wanted to be the best and see the future that I influence, and now I'm looking up.